The soft morning light had barely touched the windowsill when Luna stopped jumping up to greet her. For 3 years, that leap had been the first sound of every day, the gentle thump of paws landing beside the pillow, followed by the warm press of a forehead against her cheek. Now the little gray tabby only lifted her head, eyes dull, and let out a thin sound that was more sigh than meow. Sarah froze with one hand still on the blanket. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for weeks, and she had been too busy, too tired, too certain that a full bowl of dry kibble every morning and night was enough. If you believe in kindness and second chances, like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who loves their cat, and subscribe to channel name so more stories like this can reach the people who need them. Sarah had adopted Luna on a rainy Tuesday when the shelter volunteer placed a trembling 6-month-old kitten into her arms and said the words that still lived in her chest. "This one has been waiting for you." From that day, the apartment felt less empty. Luna followed her from room to room, slept curled against her hip, and waited by the door every evening with the patience of someone who had already known too much loneliness. Feeding her had always seemed simple. A clean bowl, a measured scoop of the expensive dry food the pet store clerk had recommended, fresh water that Luna rarely touched. Sarah told herself the kibble was complete, balanced, convenient. It was what busy people did. It was what responsible owners did. She never questioned the quiet way Luna began to drink less, or the way her once playful energy softened into long hours of stillness on the couch. The changes came slowly, the way most quiet disasters do. First, the coat lost its shine. Then the litter box visits grew more frequent and strained. One night, Sarah woke to the sound of Luna scratching at the bathroom door, restless and unsettled. In the morning, the little cat vomited a small pile of undigested kibble and looked up at her with an expression that seemed almost apologetic. Sarah cleaned it up, told herself it was a hairball, and poured another measured scoop into the bowl. She was working double shifts at the clinic and studying for an exam that never seemed to end. There was always a reason to look away. By the 3rd month, the weight loss was impossible to ignore. Luna's hips stood out like sharp little wings beneath her fur. She stopped jumping onto the kitchen counter. She stopped racing down the hallway when the treat bag rustled. One evening, Sarah sat on the floor and held out a piece of cooked chicken, the first soft food she had offered in years. Luna sniffed it, then turned her head away as if the effort of eating had become too much. That was the night Sarah finally opened her laptop and typed the words she had been afraid to face. What happens when a cat eats only dry food? The articles came like a cold wave. Cats are desert animals. Their thirst drive is naturally low. Dry kibble contains roughly 10% moisture, while a natural prey diet is closer to 70%. Chronic mild dehydration stresses the kidneys year after year until the damage becomes visible. Urinary crystals, flare-ups of cystitis, the slow decline of renal function that so many indoor cats eventually face. Sarah read until the screen blurred. She remembered the full water bowl that always stayed full. She remembered how proud she had felt when Luna finished every last piece of kibble. She had been measuring love in scoops, while her cat's body quietly asked for water it did not know how to request. The next morning, she carried Luna to the emergency clinic with hands that would not stop shaking. The veterinarian was kind but direct. Blood work showed early kidney stress. The bladder was inflamed. The recommendation was immediate: transition to wet food, increase water intake by every possible means, monitor closely. Sarah nodded through the entire conversation, paid the bills she could not really afford, and drove home with Luna in a soft carrier on the passenger seat. The little cat did not look at her. The silence between them felt heavier than any diagnosis. That first night of change was the hardest. Sarah emptied the dry food bin into a sealed container and set it high on a shelf. She opened a can of pâté and warmed it slightly the way the vet had suggested. Luna sniffed, took 3 slow bites, then walked away. Sarah sat on the kitchen floor and cried without sound, afraid that even her tears might startle the fragile creature who no longer trusted the world the same way. She tried again an hour later, then again. By midnight, Luna had eaten half a can and fallen asleep against Sarah's leg. It was the first real meal she had finished in weeks. The weeks that followed were a careful, patient undoing of old habits. Sarah placed water bowls in every room. She bought a quiet fountain that kept the water moving. She mixed a spoonful of warm broth into the wet food. She sat with Luna at every meal, speaking soft nonsense the way she had when the kitten first came home. Some days the progress was invisible. Some days Luna ate with the old eagerness, and Sarah felt her chest loosen for the first time in months. The coat began to regain its sheen. The litter box visits grew less frequent and less strained. One morning, Luna jumped onto the bed again, landed with a soft thump, and pressed her forehead against Sarah's cheek exactly as she used to. Sarah closed her eyes and held the moment as if it might disappear. There were still hard days. The guilt arrived without warning, usually at night when the apartment was quiet. Sarah would stare at the ceiling and invent every possible future in which she had known earlier, had researched earlier, had loved more carefully. She learned that guilt is not the same as care. Care is what you do after you know better, so she kept doing it. She measured progress in small victories. A full meal, a longer play session with the feather wand, the return of the soft, rumbling purr that had once filled every evening. 6 months after that first terrified clinic visit, Luna's blood work showed improvement. The veterinarian smiled and said the words Sarah had been afraid to hope for. She is responding well. Keep doing what you are doing. On the drive home, Sarah rolled the windows down even though the air was cool. Luna sat in the carrier and watched the trees move past with the quiet curiosity that had once defined her. When they reached the apartment, Sarah set the carrier on the floor and opened the door. Luna stepped out, stretched the long, luxurious stretch of a cat who feels safe in her body again, and walked straight to the water fountain for a long, deliberate drink. Sarah sat on the floor and let the tears come freely this time. They were no longer only tears of fear. They were the tears of someone who had almost lost the one living creature that made the apartment feel like home, and who had been given the rare chance to repair what negligence had begun to break. She understood now that love is not measured in convenience. It is measured in attention, in the willingness to change a habit that once felt harmless, in the decision to see the quiet signals before they become emergencies. If this story touched your heart, if it made you look at your own cat a little differently or remember a moment when you almost waited too long, please like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to channel name so that more stories of quiet love and second chances can reach the people who are still learning. Before you go, leave one word in the comments that describes how this story made you feel. Just one word. Sarah will never know you wrote it, but somewhere another person reading those comments might feel less alone in the small daily choices that shape a life shared with a cat. Luna is 8 years old now. Her coat shines. She still jumps onto the bed every morning. And every evening when Sarah opens a fresh can of wet food, the little gray tabby comes running with the same eager sound she made the first night she came home. The dry kibble remains sealed on the high shelf, a quiet reminder of the season when love almost forgot how to listen. Sarah no longer needs the reminder. She has learned that the most important meals are the ones that keep a heart beating steadily beside you for as many years as you are given.